The cafeteria went quiet when she entered. Emily Dawson kept her eyes on her tray, but she felt it. The shift in the air, the way conversations died mid-sentence, the way plastic forks stopped scraping against metal plates. She'd been in Westfield Correctional for 3 weeks, long enough to understand that silence here wasn't respectful. It was territorial. At the center table sat a woman who didn't need to raise her voice to command attention. Her name was Voss. Just Voss. No first name that anyone dared to use. She was maybe 40, with iron-gray streaks in her dark hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. Her hands rested flat on the table, scarred knuckles catching the fluorescent light. She wasn't eating. She was watching. Emily found an empty spot near the back, far from the center. She sat down slowly, keeping her movements small, unremarkable. In 3 weeks, she'd learned the most important rule of prison survival. Don't be interesting. New girl. The voice came from beside her. Emily turned to see a thin woman with hollow cheeks and a network of small scars along her jawline. Her prison blues hung loose on her frame. "I'm Carla," the woman said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Don't look at her. Boss. Don't ever look directly at her." Emily's fingers tightened on her spork. "Why?" "Because she decides who lives easy and who lives hard in here." Carla's eyes darted toward the center table, then away. "Been running D Block for 6 years. Guards let her because she keeps things quiet. Real quiet." Emily risked a glance. Voss was still staring in her direction, her expression unreadable. Then, with deliberate slowness, Voss tilted her head and smiled. It wasn't friendly. It was the smile of someone who just made a decision. Carla grabbed Emily's wrist under the table. "You're in trouble." "I haven't done anything." "Doesn't matter." "She's interested." "That's worse." The cell Emily shared with 2 other women was barely large enough for the 3 metal bunks bolted to the walls. The toilet sat in the corner without a curtain. Privacy was a luxury that didn't exist here. Her cellmates were a former accountant named Rita who never spoke, and a young woman called Bee who cried quietly every night for the first hour after lights out. Emily took the top bunk. Height felt like the only advantage she had. That night, she lay awake, listening to the sounds of the cell block. Whispered conversations. The clang of metal doors. Someone laughing, high and brittle, the kind of laughter that sounded more like breaking than joy. And underneath it all, a current of tension that never stopped humming. She thought about Carla's warning. About Voss's smile. Emily had been a paralegal on the outside. She understood power structures, hierarchies, the invisible lines that separated those who commanded from those who obeyed. But this was different. Out there, power came with titles, corner offices, salaries. And here, power came from fear. And Voss had built an empire on it. The next morning, Emily was assigned to laundry duty. The industrial washers roared in the basement, filling the air with steam and the chemical smell of industrial detergent. She worked alongside 6 other women, feeding sheets through the massive machines, her hands already raw from the heat. "Fold them tight," the guard on duty barked. He was young, maybe 25, with a name tag that read Morrison. He barely looked at the inmates, too busy scrolling through his phone. "I don't want to see a single wrinkle." Emily grabbed a hot sheet from the dryer and began folding. The woman next to her, older, with gray hair and deep lines around her mouth, worked in practiced silence. They all did. The roar of the machines made conversation nearly impossible anyway. It was during her 3rd load that Emily noticed something strange. One of the women, a heavy-set inmate with a tattoo snaking up her neck, was folding sheets into a basket that already looked full. But instead of taking it to the cart, she carried it to a corner of the room behind one of the massive dryers and left it there. Emily kept folding, but her eyes followed the woman as she returned to her station. 5 minutes later, another woman casually walked to the same corner, picked up the basket, and disappeared through a side door that Emily hadn't noticed before. Morrison never looked up from his phone. When the shift ended, Emily followed the line of women back toward D Block. Carla fell into step beside her, her movements quick and nervous. "You saw it, didn't you?" Carla whispered. "The laundry room." Emily didn't answer, but her silence was confirmation enough. "Voss runs everything," Carla continued, her voice so low Emily had to lean in to hear. "Laundry, kitchen, even the med station. Cigarettes, pills, phones, anything that moves in this place, she controls it. Guards know. They don't care. Long as nobody gets killed where cameras can see." "Why are you telling me this?" Carla's expression hardened. "Because you're new. You don't know the rules yet. And not knowing gets you hurt." They reached the day room, a common area with bolted-down tables and a television that only played approved programming. Voss sat in her usual spot, surrounded by three women who looked like they'd been carved from stone. One of them, a muscular woman with a shaved head and cold eyes, pointed at Emily. Voss nodded. Emily's stomach dropped. "She wants to talk to you," Carla said, and there was genuine fear in her voice now. "You go when she calls. You don't go, it's worse." Emily crossed the day room, every eye tracking her movement. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Her footsteps sounded too loud against the concrete floor. When she reached Voss's table, she stopped, standing because no one had invited her to sit. Up close, Voss was even more intimidating. Her eyes were dark and patient, the eyes of someone who'd learned long ago that waiting was its own form of power. "Sit," Voss said. Emily sat. "You're the new fish. Emily Dawson. Embezzlement. 3 to 5. Voss's voice was smooth, almost pleasant. "You worked for a law firm. Smart girl. I made a mistake. We all made mistakes. That's why we're here." Voss leaned back, her hands still flat on the table. "Question is, what kind of person are you? The kind who learns? Or the kind who keeps making mistakes?" Emily met her eyes, then remembered Carla's warning and looked away. "I learn." "Good." Voss smiled that same unsettling smile. "Because I need someone smart. Someone who can read, write, think. Someone who understands how the outside world works." She paused. "Someone I can trust." The word trust hung in the air like a threat. "I keep to myself," Emily said carefully. "Not anymore." Voss gestured to the muscular woman with the shaved head. "This is Knife. She'll explain how things work. You do what she says when she says it. You do it well, you live comfortable. You understand?" It wasn't a question. Emily nodded. "Good girl?" Voss stood, and immediately the women around her stood too. "Welcome to the family." Emily's new role became clear over the following weeks. Knife came to her cell each morning with instructions, sometimes written on scraps of paper, sometimes whispered in passing. The tasks were simple at first. Deliver a message to someone in C block. Pick up a package from the laundry room and leave it in a specific bathroom stall. Watch the guard rotations and report which ones took breaks at the same time every day. Emily complied. Not because she wanted to, but because she understood the alternative. Carla had told her about a woman named Jensen who'd refused to work for Voss 2 years ago. They found her in the shower with her wrists opened. The official report called it suicide. Everyone knew better. But what disturbed Emily most wasn't the work itself, it was how efficient the system was. Voss had built an empire with the precision of a Fortune 500 company. She had runners, enforcers, accountants. She had guards on her payroll who looked the other way at the right moments. She had systems within systems, redundancies, fail-safes. And Emily, with her paralegal background, recognized it for what it was. A criminal enterprise operating inside a prison with more organization than most legitimate businesses. "You're thinking too much," Knife said one afternoon in the yard. They stood near the fence, far enough from the others to talk. "I can see it on your face." Emily watched a group of women playing cards at a picnic table. "I'm just trying to understand how this works." "It works because Voss makes it work. That's all you need to understand." Knife lit a cigarette, contraband, but no guard bothered them. "You want to survive? Stop thinking like a lawyer and start thinking like a convict." "What's the difference?" "Lawyers believe in rules. Convicts know rules are just pretty words. Power is what matters. Who has it, who wants it, who's willing to do what it takes to keep it." Knife exhaled smoke. "Voss has power because she's willing to do things other people won't. That's the only rule that matters in here." Emily absorbed this, watching the yard. The hierarchy was visible everywhere once you knew to look for it. Women who walked with confidence, who took what they wanted. Women who kept their heads down, who flinched at loud noises. Women who existed in the spaces between, trying to be invisible. She thought about her own case. The money she'd taken from the firm's trust account to pay for her mother's cancer treatment. The way the partners had made an example of her, pursuing maximum charges to send a message. She believed in the system then. Believed that if she showed remorse, cooperated, played by the rules, she'd be treated fairly. 3 to 5 years had taught her how naive that belief was. "So what does Voss want with me?" Emily asked. Knife studied her for a long moment. "You really don't see it?" "See what?" "You're educated. You speak well. You know how to read contracts, navigate bureaucracy." Knife flicked ash onto the ground. "Voss is getting older. She's been running D-Block for 6 years, but that's a long time in here. She's thinking about legacy. About what happens when she can't do this anymore." Emily's blood went cold. You think she's grooming me to replace her? I think she's grooming you for something. Whether it's to replace her or just to handle the part she's getting too old for, Knife shrugged. Either way, you're in deeper than you think. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, while Bee cried quietly below and Rita's breathing rattled in the dark. Everything Knife had said circled in her mind. She didn't want power. She didn't want to be part of this system. She just wanted to serve her time and get out, go back to her mother, try to rebuild some kind of life. But prison didn't care what you wanted. Prison took what you were and bent it into what it needed. The question was, how much of herself would Emily lose before she got out? Her name was Sienna. She was 23, with dark skin, cornrows pulled back tight, and eyes that burned with the kind of anger that came from having nothing left to lose. She arrived at Westfield on a Tuesday, escorted in chains, and by Wednesday she'd already made herself a problem. Emily first saw her in the cafeteria. Sienna walked straight to Voss's table and sat down without invitation. The entire room went silent, that dangerous, breath-held silence that preceded violence. Voss looked at her. Knife and the others tensed, hands moving toward weapons that weren't visible but everyone knew were there. "You're in my seat," Voss said quietly. "Your seat." Sienna smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I don't see your name on it. You're new. So I'll explain this once." Voss's voice never rose, never hardened. That was somehow more frightening. "You can sit anywhere in this cafeteria except at this table. You can eat, sleep, work, do whatever you want. But this table belongs to me. You understand?" "I understand that you're old," Sienna said. "And old things break." Knife moved first, fast as a snake. Her fist connected with Sienna's jaw, snapping her head back. Sienna hit the floor, blood streaming from her mouth. But instead of staying down, she laughed. Actually laughed. "That's all you got?" Guards rushed in, batons out, shouting orders. Sienna was dragged away, still laughing, blood painting her teeth red. The cafeteria slowly returned to normal, conversations resuming, forks scraping plates. But Emily saw something in Voss's face, something she hadn't seen before. Uncertainty. That night, in the cell, Carla was nearly hyperventilating with anxiety. "That girl is dead. She's dead. Voss will kill her." "Maybe," Rita said. It was the first time Emily had heard her speak in weeks. "Or maybe she's the beginning of something worse." Emily wanted to ask what she meant, but lights out came and the conversation died. She lay awake, thinking about Sienna's smile, about the way Voss had hesitated for just a fraction of a second before Knife moved. In a world built on fear, hesitation was blood in the water. Over the next week, Emily watched as the dynamics of D Block shifted. Sienna came back from segregation with fresh bruises but unbroken. She sat at her own table, surrounded by younger inmates, women who were tired of Voss's control, who saw in Sienna something they'd lost: defiance. Voss didn't move against her directly. That would have been too obvious, too risky with guards already watching after the cafeteria incident. Instead, the pressure came in smaller ways. Sienna's cell got tossed during random searches. Her commissary orders were mysteriously delayed. The women who sat with her found themselves assigned to the worst work details. But Sienna didn't back down. If anything, she pushed harder. Emily found herself caught in the middle. Voss relied on her more now, trusting her to carry messages, to keep track of the increasingly complex web of favors and debts that kept the empire running. But Sienna noticed her too. "You work for the Queen," Sienna said one morning in the shower room. They were alone, water running in parallel stalls. "Smart girl like you." "Why?" Emily kept washing, not looking at her. "I work for myself. I do what I have to do to survive. That's what they all say. Right up until they forget they used to be human." Sienna's voice echoed off the tiles. "You know what happens to people who prop up tyrants? They get buried with them. And you know what happens to people who challenge them?" Emily shot back. "They don't last long enough to see if they're right." Sienna laughed, sharp and bitter. "Maybe. But at least I'll die standing up." The words haunted Emily for days. Because part of her, the part that had once believed in justice, in doing the right thing, wondered if Sienna had a point. Voss ruled through fear and violence. She built nothing, created nothing. She just took. But the other part of Emily, the part that had learned how to survive in here, knew that righteousness was a luxury. And in Westfield Correctional, luxuries got you killed. The breaking point came 3 weeks after Sienna's arrival. Emily was in the laundry room, sorting through the usual drop point, when Knife appeared behind her. "Voss wants to see you. Now." Emily followed her through the corridors, past the day room where Sienna and her growing group sat watching, into a section of D block that was officially closed for maintenance but everyone knew was Voss's real office. Voss sat on an overturned crate, smoking a cigarette. Around her were Knife and two other enforcers. The room smelled like mold and old concrete. "We have a problem," Voss said without preamble. "The girl. Sienna. She's just loud," Emily said carefully. "All talk. No. She's smart. She's building something. And if I don't stop her soon, she'll have enough people that stopping her means a war. Guards will crack down, everyone loses." Voss took a long drag. "I need you to do something for me." Emily's stomach tightened. "What?" "I need you to get close to her. Befriend her. Find out what she's planning, who her real allies are." Voss's eyes were flat, emotionless. "I need you to betray her." The request hung in the air like poison gas. "I'm not," Emily started. "You are. Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows you've been working for me. Sienna's people will tear you apart. And if somehow you survive that, you'll spend the rest of your sentence in protective custody, which means 23 hours a day in a cell the size of a closet." Voss leaned forward. "Or you help me and when you get out of here, you get out whole. Your choice." Emily realized there was no choice. There had never been a choice. From the moment Voss had smiled at her in the cafeteria 3 months ago, Emily's path had been decided. "What do you need me to do?" Gaining Sienna's trust was easier than Emily expected. She simply told the truth, that she was tired of working for Voss, that she wanted out but didn't know how. Sienna was suspicious at first, but Emily's legal background proved useful. She helped Sienna draft grievances against corrupt guards, navigate the Byzantine prison bureaucracy, file proper requests that couldn't be easily ignored. Over 3 weeks, Emily became Sienna's closest advisor. And every night she reported everything back to Voss. The betrayal was arranged for a Saturday afternoon in the yard. Sienna had planned to move a large shipment of contraband, pills stolen from the medical station, that would fund her operations and prove she could operate outside Voss's control. Emily had given Voss the exact time and location. But as Emily watched the guards move into position, as she saw Sienna laughing with her friends, completely unaware of what was about to happen, something inside her broke. She'd spent 3 months learning to survive. Learning that power was all that mattered, that morality was a luxury, that you did what you had to do. She'd let prison reshape her into something cold and calculating. But watching Sienna, young, defiant, refusing to be broken, Emily saw something she'd lost. Hope. The stubborn, foolish belief that things could be different. That you didn't have to become a monster to survive in a place full of monsters. Emily made her decision in a heartbeat. She crossed the yard in quick strides and grabbed Sienna's arm. "It's a trap. Right now. Guards know about the pills. Boss knows. You need to move them now or dump them." Sienna's eyes went wide. "What?" "Go. Now." Sienna ran, taking 2 others with her. The guards reached the drop point 30 seconds later and found nothing. Emily watched from across the yard as the operation fell apart, as Voss's carefully laid trap caught nothing but air. That evening, Knife came to Emily's cell. Rita and Bea were at dinner. Emily was alone. "Voss wants to see you." Emily's hands were shaking. She clasped them together. "I figured." The walk to Voss's unofficial office felt like walking to an execution. The corridors were empty, silent. Knife said nothing, her face unreadable. Voss was waiting. Alone this time. That was somehow worse. "You warned her," Voss said. Not a question. Emily didn't bother denying it. "Yes." "Why?" "Because you were going to destroy her. And I'm tired of watching people get destroyed." Voss studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. Not the predatory smile from before. Something sadder. More human. "You think you did the right thing," Voss said. "You think you saved her. I think I stopped you from crushing someone who was just trying to survive. No. You painted a target on both of you." Voss stood slowly. "Sienna knows you worked for me. Now she knows you betrayed me. Neither of us will trust you now. You're alone." Emily felt the truth of it settle over her like a shroud. "So what happens now?" "Now. You survive. If you can." Voss walked to the door, paused. "I was wrong about you. I thought you were smart. But smart people know when to stay silent. They know when to play the game." She looked back one last time. "You just ended your own life in here. Hope it was worth it." Knife escorted Emily back to her cell in silence. When the door locked behind her, Emily sat on her bunk and tried to control her breathing. She'd made her choice. She'd drawn a line and stood on one side of it. But Voss was right. In prison, idealism was a death sentence. The next morning, Emily found her breakfast tray missing. The guard claimed it was a mistake. At lunch, she sat alone. Sienna's group ignored her. Voss's people stared at her with cold contempt. She was invisible and hypervisible at the same time, a ghost haunting the edges of D Block. Carla found her in the yard that afternoon. "You're a fool," she said without preamble. "You know that, right?" "Yeah, I know. Voss will come for you eventually. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But eventually." Carla's voice was sad. "You could have played it safe. Could have survived." "Surviving isn't the same as living," Emily said quietly. "And here it is." Emily watched Sienna across the yard, surrounded by her people, laughing about something. For just a moment, Sienna's eyes met Emily's. There was no gratitude there, no acknowledgement. Just wariness. Just the careful distance of someone who'd learned not to trust. Emily had saved her. And it had cost Emily everything. But as she stood there, alone in a yard full of women, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in months. Something fragile and painful and real. She felt like herself.